Right. Hi, Leslie. How you doing? Nice to have you on the podcast.
It's awesome to finally be here. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. It's good to touch base and reconnect properly again. I thought like we could talk about to begin with, like because you do like ice skating. You have like a past to doing like ice skating, and I saw your video actually recently, which is pretty amazing. And you said something like you haven't done it in a while, but you still like made it look like you've done it all your life.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It hasn't been all my life, but it's been, let's see, it took 15 years off of skating. So I started skating when I was older anyway. I did dance as a young kid. I did tap dance. I was a nerd. And
Wow.
then got into skating when I was like 12 years old. I hated it. I actually hated it initially. And my mom loved it. And she bribed me to going with her. And I went once and I was like, hey,
Yeah.
that sucked. Let's never do that again. And she goes, no, 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 we got to go. Just go with me one more time. And my parents were broke at the time. And so I said, all right, mom, you give me a skating skirt and white skates and I'll go. And I was like, they're not buying anything. So I'm scot-free out of this one. I think I was 11 years old at the time. And my dad worked at a sporting goods store, and somebody just happened to return a pair of skates that they had to throw out my size that were white. And my mom took one of my skirts and just like chopped it off and hemmed it up. And she was like, look, skating skirt and skates. And I was like,
Oh
oh,
my
really?
God. Yeah.
Fine, I'll go. And I ended up falling in love with it. And so I did that I started competing when I was 12 years old. So I was an old lady in skating already. Did that through high school, and then not much in college because it's expensive and I was a broke college student. So
Hmm.
it took 15 years off, got back into it a little bit. But the video you're talking about, I used to spin. Like, I loved spinning. And so I thought I'd go out and try again, but it's different now. Like, I get so dizzy. But yeah, it was fun. So hopefully I'll be able to get into it some more and find that happiness, find my happy place on the ice again.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Because I saw the video and it's like you span around like really fast, like ran around. And it made me kind of feel funny like watching it because I imagine myself doing that. And I suppose you probably do get used to it. But I suppose you just kind of have a point to focus on when you spin around.
So everybody actually deals with it differently, and that's kind of the cool thing about human nature is everyone, we could all be doing the same spin, but we're all going to deal with it differently. So like, there's a kid that I teach, and he rolls his eyes back in his head when he spins, and it kind of freaks me out. But it works for
Jeez.
him. Other people
Yeah.
close their eyes, some people look down. I let my eyes blur because I have bad eyes anyway, so I can let them blur, and everything kind of just goes away.
Hmm.
um, but it's definitely weird, and since having kids, it's changed so much too. So I can do
Hmm.
certain spins, but if like I do what's called a layback spin and I tilt my head back when I spin, I get nauseous like that, like like I'm that old lady on the ice. I'm like, oh,
Oh wow.
we're done with those.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the spinning and stuff, you do get used to it. The human body is incredible like that. It really is.
Yeah, it's I suppose you adapt and you just adjust to like certain situations, don't you? And it's like kind of like probably muscle memory in some way. You just kind of get back into that routine of it. I remember
Yeah.
when I first did ice skating years ago, and the place where I did it, they gave you these crappy ice skates, and they're like made of plastic.
Yep.
And I remember, yeah, like really cheap ones. And I remember that, like you're skating around, and I remember when I finished, I was covered in blisters. And you see other kids, like flying around in these expensive ice skates, like flying around backwards and stuff. And it's
Yep.
uh, it's a lot of discipline.
It is a lot of discipline. I was actually talking to one of my students, God, this week, I think it was, and they were working on something and they're like, I was just doing this and it was fine. I could do it just fine the other day. And I said, stop, time out. The coolest thing about ice skating is you'll never be perfect. It is
Mm,
impossible to be like the best and perfect, because you may have the most points in a program, but somebody else over here can do something else better. I said, and
mm,
in skating, you're going to be able to do something amazing one day, and for the next 3 months, you're not going to be able to do it because it is such a finite sport, right? You're putting all this power and all this momentum and everything onto this tiny piece of ice, and you're going, okay, well, I have to coordinate my entire body, literally head to toe, just right to make this work. And so it's just nothing but repetition and hard work and discipline and discipline and discipline. And it's going to suck some days and you're going to go, well, I guess we're still going to do it anyway because I have a goal, right? Keep working. But so here's your secret to skating. Next time you go skating, which you should go, just don't get the crappy plastic skates. You have to think of your body in two halves. Okay. So you'll be the guy flying around the ice in no time with this. So think about it from the waist up. You're like a dancer, a ballerina, right? You have to carry yourself really tall, right? Your head has to stay very tall. You don't want your nose in the air. But from the waist down, you have to think of yourself like hip hop dancer. You have to stay really low. So if you look from the side, you'll have a line that goes from your shoulder to your hip to your heel, straight down. Boom. As long as you keep that line, you'll stay on your feet and have great balance. And then you'll fly.
Yeah.
See, now you know the secret.
I know. I have to try it next time and count how many times I'm trying not to fall over and stuff.
Oh, no. Trying not to fall does not count.
Yeah.
Everybody tries not to fall. It's the falling part. You get to count those ones. Only if you're not being goofy. Goofy falls are different.
Yeah. But I suppose it's kind of like, it's that process, isn't it? I think I think that's what's important with a lot of things in life is like that process, isn't it? Because you're kind of going in there, kind of a bit like Bambi, I suppose, and then over time, it's that process of practice and getting better, which probably increase, probably good for people's self-esteem and how people feel. You think for exercise and doing activities like that.
It is, and it's cool because it's something that you can apply to so many areas in your life. So absolutely, in sports and skating, things like that, you need to apply that. But it's no different than like with job interviews, right? If you only do like one job interview every couple of years, it's probably going to be rusty. It's probably not going to be there. It's not that natural feel. But if you're looking for a job and you constantly are having these job interviews, you get that comfort, you get your happy place in there. It's no different with anything. It's dealing with crappy drivers on the road, right? You get used to being able to just go, I'm just going to chill out. They're not worth my energy right now. I'll scream in my head, right? But the more you practice it and you keep that discipline, the easier it gets. And it's just a matter of, is it physical or mental or both, and throw it all together. But I think Bambi's a fabulous example on that one through life. We're all Bambis initially.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think like it's probably a place of growth, isn't it? I think if you can kind of go through that stage and kind of be vulnerable, isn't it? But be vulnerable, go out your comfort zone, go into those situations or scenarios where you feel like you're skidding on ice, and then you look back to it, over time, and you're not skidding on ice anymore. Yeah,
absolutely. It was funny. I was talking to Mark Straczewski, who is on LinkedIn. He's awesome. If you don't, I think you do. Do you follow him at all?
Mark Straczewski.
He's a productivity coach.
What's his name? How do you pronounce it?
You're gonna ask for a spelling. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Because I want to say it's kind of like it looks like it looks Polish, but I could be wrong. Sorry if it's not Polish, Mark. Straczewski. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But anyway.
Oh, is it McClatchy?
It looks like that. Yeah. Let me see.
Is he wearing a suit?
No, I don't know. It's Struczewski.
Okay. No,
just a
I'm
headshot.
Not, but I can connect afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. So he would be an awesome one to connect with. But I had talked to him once and he was saying, hey, you should start keeping like a gratitude journal just every day, just write a couple things down or whatever. And I was like, all right, cool. Sounds good. And he said, when you look back, you'll go, I feel like I've gone nowhere. I feel like it's out of control. And he goes, and you'll go back and go, oh my gosh, I had no idea how far I've actually come. Because, right, our view of our life is this big because we see every detail of every day and we get caught up in that. And we don't see all of this progress we've made in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, whatever it is. And that's where I think a lot of times having good friends or really good family helps. So you can go just like with fitness, right? Because so you're really into fitness too. And sometimes you do your fitness journey and it's amazing. And sometimes you're doing the work and you're not seeing what you want to see. And then you can go back to a picture from like 3 months ago and be like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I've made great progress.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think like you said, we can get caught up in that. I don't know, like we like instant gratification, and we can kind of just probably not say be bored, but we get caught up in just doing, and then we kind of think to ourselves, you know, we kind of don't think about the past, or we don't always reflect sometimes. But until you reflect, like you said, you
Yeah.
can kind of see how far you've come. Whether that's fitness or whether that's doing like certain content on the internet, you can kind of see how far you've grown and stuff. And I think it's important to do that, isn't it? It's important to do that. It's important to do a gratitude list as well.
Absolutely, especially with all the kind of extra craziness that seems to be going on lately. It's
Yeah.
so easy to get caught up in the negative, and that's how human brains are made, right? We pay
Mm.
attention to the negative. Like it creates this huge space in our brain because it's a survival mechanism to pay attention to those kind of things. But that means we have a tendency to neglect the positive, but those positives are so important for our daily health and our happiness and our productivity and everything in
Mm.
between. So yeah, if we just take that minute to literally, I do it in my calendar, because that paper's always right there in front of me with all my to-dos for the day, and I just a couple things. Hey, this day, this is what happened. I'm grateful for this. And some days I'm just like, I'm grateful that I'm writing here and I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
Right? I'm grateful the day is done. And
Yeah.
that's okay. That is okay, because it still takes you out of that negative moment. And I don't know how it is over there, but like our media over here is all about negativity.
Mm.
Everything's about negativity. And so people who get sucked into that, it's intense. It's really intense. So yeah, taking that time to be mindful about your positive moments.
Mm.
Huge difference every day.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think that's really important what you said, and I think like it's being aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling, isn't it? It can be difficult because there's so much going on around. There's so much kind of going on, in our heads, etc. But I think that with the news, especially, like being careful what kind of news you look at. The thing is that we have like the wide kind of spread news, like the BBC, is one of the biggest ones.
Oh
It's
yeah.
even in the States, I think.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
BBC, we have Sky News. There's many others, but we have like also local news as well, like local area news. And sometimes I watch it and it annoys me because I'm like, is that even news? Like there was like there was one where they pulled down a bridge. There was like a crossover bridge that you walked over
Yeah.
from one part of the road to the next, and it was taken down, and there was like a massive article on it, and I'm like, is that even news? They're just taking just taking off a walkway bridge from the road, like, and they made 15 minutes on the news, and I'm like, there's surely more important things happening out there. So
Maybe that's a good sign though. Maybe that's the sign that there's nothing else going on. It's
yeah,
better than, hey, there was a double homicide at like, McDonald's last night, right?
yeah,
I'll totally take, they took the walking bridge down instead.
yeah, yeah. I was just
That's
like,
funny.
this is really strange. It's really like a really British news kind of like thing. But yeah, I mean, the news and the media is really powerful because I think it influences how you think and how you feel and how you behave, and especially with the coronavirus thing, because we had we have these monthly or weekly announcements from the Prime Minister, and he would talk about the coronavirus situation and what's happening. And it's very strict and it's very firm. It's very like can be quite scary or negative. And there's no like reassurance in it. And he was basically saying, if you don't abide by the rules, you could lose family members before their time. And it's like, that's quite okay. That could happen, but it's very dumb. And
Yeah.
they,
It's very emotional, right? It's that
yeah,
emotional trigger as opposed to using logic. And that's one of, I think, the biggest problems here in the States is our public education system is not the greatest. And
mm,
so these people learn to live on emotion, and we value living on emotion, which is ridiculous. and really quite harmful. But yeah, you get the news and you get these people out there, especially these people in leadership positions or these organizations that are supposed to know what they're talking about. And they just drop this stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, shock value. And you immediately go into this reaction, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you should be going, well, time out. I could lose a family member early because they walked down the stairs wrong and fell, right? Okay, so should you be smart about your situation? Absolutely. Can we be adults though? That would be nice, right?
Yeah.
But we seem to lose, we've lost a ton of that through all of this because people are just looking for that, somebody tell me something I want to hear, somebody shock me, right? Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my mom if I don't wash my hands 55 times a day. Not likely. Possible.
Right? Yeah. It is a funny situation. I mean, I think with my news, I just tend to sounds really bad, but I kind of listen to, watch podcasts like Joe Rogan and things like that, because there's news and podcasts that they look into, and especially, I mean, on LinkedIn, I mean, looking at news where you've kind of got important stuff, but it's kind of filtered down, so you're not seeing all the nonsense. But I think that's kind of it's what gets people's attention. It then makes money, doesn't it, for these companies?
And you totally hit it right on the head. It is money, right? The reactions get people to come back. It's no different than adrenaline junkies. So I don't know how you are, but I'm totally an adrenaline junkie. I love that adrenaline rush. And so I'm always okay, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go bungee jumping. I'm going to go skydiving. I'm going to whatever, even on the daily stuff. So if somebody can sit down in front of the news and they get that adrenaline rush, your body reacts to that physically, right? Your brain does, especially. And then when you sit down, if you don't get that again, you're bored. And then you're just going to change the channel. So if they can keep that adrenaline rush going by being more extreme and more extreme and more extreme, all of a sudden you've got these people literally just hooked into this. And it doesn't matter if it's a bridge falling down or being taken down, or your mother's going to die from coronavirus, or somebody, it doesn't matter. They have perfected the art of getting people to respond emotionally and getting you hooked on that emotional thing. So I think the idea of listening to the podcast and stuff makes so much more sense, because if you go into it with an open mind and you watch all different kinds of podcasts, right? People you don't necessarily agree with, but people you agree with, people you don't understand what they're talking about, but you're going to listen anyway, right? That's how you understand what's going on in the world. But if we just listen to our news and we get this idea that, oh my gosh, the entire world has coronavirus and every other human being is dying and the rest of them are turning into zombies, right?
Yeah.
And when you step outside of that and you go, but I don't see any evidence around me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. But the podcast brings so much more of that one-on-one real life into it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because you're kind of seeing other people's perspective. You're seeing different people's perspective on, say, articles or things that are happening and their point of view. And then you can make up your own mind based on that. And it's not like it's still factual, but it's not like you consume it in a different way. You know what I mean? You see it in a different way. I think it's something that we have to think about, I think, and something that we kind of have to kind of limit and have that balance of it as well, especially when you look at the news. Don't look at it before you go to try and look at it before you go to bed. But yeah, I mean, as well, to kind of change subject, I forgot to mention what it is that you do work-wise. So you're doing coaching.
Yeah, so I have a couple jobs. I have what I call job ADD. So I coach figure skating. I'm a private coach. I'm a public coach. So I teach group classes too. And then I also teach hockey conditioning and edge classes to really strengthen their skating.
Wow.
And then on top of that, I'm just getting ready to start teaching conditioning to a hockey team up here, a college hockey team. I'm really excited about that. And then I actually own my own business. And I don't know if you know that. I'm a firearms dealer and an NRA instructor. So yeah, right? I get that reaction a lot. I teach people how to shoot. I teach them concealed carry courses. So in the US, most states,
I'd
you
love
have to
that.
take a class to learn to prove that you can shoot, you know what you're doing before you can conceal carry a gun. So I teach those classes and then I sell guns and yeah, that
That's
kind of stuff.
cool. That's it's the word America.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
about right. That's about
yeah,
right.
that's cool though. I think, I think, especially in America and especially in certain places, you kind of need a weapon for self-defense because, there's a lot of crazy things happening. And it's kind of, it's almost like a culture thing, do you know what I mean? I've been to America a few times and I'm quite streetwise and I've kind of been to certain places and I'm like, ooh, would I want to be down here on a dark night? Like, so there's certain elements to it as well, isn't there? So, but with the like the weapon side of it, like, so do you do like you take people on courses and you do like firearm training, things like that?
So I'm a stickler for a lot of classroom work. So I want people to know how to take apart their gun and clean their gun and handle their gun and know that if something goes wrong, they know what to do with their gun and know when it's okay legally to shoot or not to shoot, where you can shoot, what you can shoot, how you can shoot. I mean, all of it, right? So it's really quite comprehensive. So I do a lot of classroom work and then I take people to the range and then from there we work on like the physical actual shooting, how to
Mm.
aim and how to shoot and be consistent and one of the things that I really stress in my classes and this is very applicable to outside of the firearms world is when you're under a lot of stress, your body doesn't do fine tuning anymore, right? So you lose a lot of like your finite movements, um, and your brain goes into overdrive. Like it just boom, right. It's almost like that emotional. It's right that emotional response again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see it as my job to make sure that people are educated enough and practiced enough that if they're ever in this emotional situation, that they can make a good decision. And when you start throwing firearms into that, that's a really, really big responsibility, I think. Like I definitely take that very seriously because the last thing I want to do is say, hey, this guy over here totally knows what he's doing. And then like he gets into a situation and he does something super stupid and you're going, I said he was
Yeah, yeah,
okay. And he's
yeah,
not,
yeah.
right? And so yeah, that's what I do is I really try to drill people and make them understand the importance of doing all of this, not just legally, but smart.
Yeah. I think that'd be interesting to talk about as well because I think like, um, especially I won't go too much into it, but with like the police in America, there's been a lot of cases where um, police officers have reacted, um, and they're saying, I mean, it's a whole different story, that they should have more kind of training and guidance in that area of things because they're reacting, like you said, that adrenaline's going, and people, um, things can be misinterpreted when there's so much going on, especially
Yeah.
if the weather's not good. There's so many different dynamics: the weather, nighttime,
Mm-hmm.
um, the area. So tensions are high, and people are, they've got a weapon. The other person might. So I think a lot of the time, people, not that I've been in one of those situations myself, but if I was put myself in that situation, they might react, and their adrenaline's pumping. If they just take a deep breath and just relax and where you, because when your adrenaline's going, your thinking is blurred. It's not the
Yeah.
same. I can't remember what actually happens in the brain, but something happens where I think it's the frontal part of the brain. The logical side of it isn't as effective.
Right. Right. You lose a lot of your executive processing, and you're right. If that comes from the frontal lobe, if I remember right,
Yeah,
college was a really long time ago. That piece of college, um, and it's an interesting dilemma here in the U.S. with that because they do need the training. They need so much training because you're right. You cannot train for these situations because there's so much going on. You cannot perfectly train for everything that's going to happen. But at the same time, at least a lot of our society is not willing to put in the money that it would take to fund that.
Right.
That's a lot of time. That's a lot of, and it's constant training, right? It's not you go through the academy for 8 months and then you're good. It's constantly keeping up those skills. And so, it's an interesting dilemma when you talk about it from like a public service perspective, but so if you were to look, my dad was a cop, so I'll throw this out there. So I have a little bit of the insider perspective. Now, he did mostly narcotics work, and some cult stuff, which was crazy weird. But where was I going with that?
Cool stuff. You said cool stuff, which is really weird. If you
cool
can't,
the narcotics and the cult stuff. It was he did satanic cult crimes. Weird stuff.
Yeah.
No, but as a cop, it was interesting because he never had to pull his trigger. Now, he's got a couple of stories where he was ready to pull the trigger. But I mean, they were constantly going through the training of doing that. And if you're going to put that kind of responsibility into citizens' hands with like a concealed carry, they should be required to do a lot of the same training. And I know that's not a cool perspective around here, and a lot of people don't like that, and that's too bad. It just kind of makes common sense to me.
Yeah, no, I've listened to podcasts where a guy called Joey Diaz, and he said he knows a lot of cops, and he said, with some police officers, they don't take police officers from, where they've been brought up. They put them in different states or different areas. And he was saying, like, there'd be less problems if you had, I don't know, say, for example, Officer Wilkins in the state he grew up in, and people know who he is. And there'd be a lot less, problems because people know who that guy is. And they understand the area and what's going on as well.
Yeah, and again, that's a double-edged sword. So it'd be great to have the cops have that inside knowledge, right? The street smarts, and understand the feel of the streets and what they're looking for. And there is a lot of value to that. At the same time, if you live in the area you work in, and you're working in areas where you're making a lot of enemies who have violent tendencies and connections, that's not okay. I know for the majority of the police officers I know, they do not live in the exact area, the precincts that they actually work in. And it's because, if I take your buddy down here in for, drug dealing, whatever else, and it pisses you off, and then you see me on the street, not at work, there's a problem. There's likely to be a huge problem. So I totally understand what you're saying, and I agree 100%. But there's the other side to it too.
There is that side to it, yeah. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is that double-edged sided sword to it. But like with like terms of like in America and like people carry weapons, do you think like people just need to be more kind of relaxed around it, like, to be prepared, but like, there's like a difference between like responding and reacting, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of people actually get into trouble with the police, because we expect the police to keep us safe. But if you literally look at what a police does, they react once the problem has happened. That's their job. So it's our job to try to mitigate circumstances as much as possible, right? So if there's a confrontation going on, a really heated confrontation, I think it's every citizen's job to do their best to go, whoa, chill, time out, right? And it's really hard to do. Like if you're in the parking lot and you've got two people screaming at each other and you're like, something's going on, it's really hard, because I've been there, done that, to walk up to one of them and be like, is there anything I can help you with? Right? They're going to turn on you. But it distracts them, right? It breaks that moment. But it's not a normal human thing to do. It's very uncomfortable. And as a society that where we are able, for the most part, to carry weapons on us, I think, again, it is so important that you have additional training. Right? It's not like anybody can just go drive. I don't hand somebody my car keys and go, hey, 10-year-old, have fun on the streets, right? You have to go out, you have to prove you know what you're doing. Although that should be stricter too, because the drivers are horrific, but we won't even start on that. But yeah, if you're going to be trusted with something that could kill somebody, I don't care if you're carrying a freaking baseball bat around, right? You should have to go through some sort of basic training that shows you what to do, when to do it, and emotional training, right? That's the biggest thing that lacks, is that emotional training. I'm super pissed off right now, and I've totally been wronged, and so on and so forth, and I feel justified in my action because my view of my world is this big right now, right? I see everything that has just gone wrong, and I'm ready to take action. But for anybody on the outside, they're going to go, wait, time out. Dude, time out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we don't, here in the States especially, we don't teach emotional IQ at all. At all. And it's a problem. It's a huge problem.
And then that kind of like has to kind of be dealt with afterwards, isn't it? Because like, you know, that situation happens and you see it on the news a lot. And, you know, this has happened, and then they kind of come to terms with the process and, you know, all that stuff afterwards. Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting topic, you know, talk about for hours about.
Yeah.
As well with the ice skating, like do you like find it really rewarding, you know, like coaching people and seeing them like come on in like, you know, ice skating and hockey?
I do. And actually one of the things that I love most about it is it's an opportunity to mentor the kids, and adults too, and teach them that emotional IQ, right? So if they're not going to learn it in school, and houses are supposed to be that place, right? When you're home, you should be able to just like chill out and explode in your room and do what you need to do, whatever else. But with skating, you have the discipline, and with that discipline comes frustration. And with that frustration comes disappointment. And with all of that, lots of times comes anger. And those are all natural things, right? You don't repress those. You don't say, nope, that's not okay. Don't feel those, right? That is not the way to handle it. And that's how we have a tendency to handle it, is either don't feel it or feel it all. We have to go back to doing a lot of mindfulness, and it's going, okay, right now I am feeling very angry. Okay. I'm going to acknowledge the fact that right now I'm super pissed. But then I'm going to let it go, because that's not who I want to be right now, right? That particular feeling is not going to be a productive feeling, no matter what that feeling is. But teaching people to do that is so much work. And so if you can start with these kids, right, they get super angry because they didn't get, you know, the placement in the competition they thought they were going to. Well, this is an awesome opportunity for me to sit down with them and go, look, life's not fair. Sorry. If you did this to get a first place in the competition, you're doing it all wrong to begin with. You did this to learn. You did this to grow. You did this to be healthy. But teaching that is just this, it's a lifelong lesson. But if you can start when they're young, and then you see them develop, and you see them get it, and you see them get excited, and you see when the kid, I had one kid, oh my gosh, she was so funny. She's this itsy bitsy little thing. And in a competition, what did she do? Oh, so she had two programs. So she did one program, and then later in the day, she had to do the second. Well, instead of doing the second program, she did the first again. And I was just like, you can't do that. Like, you're going to be disqualified. You can't do that. And so she got off the ice. She was itsy bitsy, so I could yell at her. So I was like yelling at her on the ice. I'm like, finish your program. And she did. And then she skated off, and I was like, okay, we're going to chill out. And so I told her mom, I said, expect this not to go well. Right. And she was like, how did I do? And I was like, well, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And I expected her to be like, just distraught and downtrodden and everything else. And she wasn't. She was like, oh, so next time I shouldn't do that. And I was like, yes, let's not repeat that.
Yeah.
But it was so cool for me as a coach to be able to go, wow, she had this growth moment, right? Where she could have very justifiably been very hard on herself and very critical of herself and everything else. But she didn't. She went, oh man, I totally screwed up. I guess I should fix that. And I was like, score.
Yeah.
You're doing something right in the world.
Yeah.
And there's so much fulfillment as a coach when you have those moments. I love it. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen that plenty with your coaching too.
Yeah.
Right? You're talking to someone and you're hashing something out, and it's just, right, there's like this wall there. And as soon as you break that wall down and they have like this aha moment, you're going, oh, I have done something good in the world.
Yeah.
Best feeling ever.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's pretty amazing that, you know, when you see people shift from, wherever they are in their mind, before they come to you, and then you see them kind of change. And it's just having that space for them to kind of like unravel, whatever's going on. And some people just kind of need to be listened to. Some people just need that space to kind of have certain questions kind of thrown their way, and then they can kind of do their work. It's like they're doing all the work. You're just kind of like, it's almost like guiding a ship to its course in some.
Exactly. Well, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about relationships or coaching or whatever it is, you cannot force somebody to see something they don't want to see. Yeah. Right? You can literally show them all the evidence, right? I'm telling you, you are blank, and here's everything. There's no way you can deny this, and they're going to deny it, right? And that's okay. That's human nature. But if you as a coach can, like you said, guide them so that they can see on their own terms, oh my gosh, this is where I'm at. This is where I need to be. This is what it's going to take. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And going back to practice and discipline, the more they do it, the easier it becomes. And that's how you get people who can stop and look at themselves and go, okay, I got to fix something. But that's really hard to do. It's hard to teach.
Yeah, it can be difficult, I bet. And I think like it's that person being able to kind of stop for a second and pause, isn't it? And like you said, that young girl that you're talking about, kind of, I think I don't know, like, I wouldn't say age, I wouldn't say I blame the age, but I think like, it's just, she probably had a lot of clarity at that time, it just made her realize the way she kind of thought about it. Where some people can kind of get defensive and be like, no, it's not me, and point the finger. And if you can actually probably find a place in yourself where you take a step back and look at it, think about it, then they can kind of, take it in more, probably.
Absolutely. And that's how we grow, right? If we're not willing to take that time to have that uncomfortable moment and that uncomfortable conversation with ourselves of, okay, I screwed up, or I need to change, or whatever it is, that growth will never happen, right? We will be victims of the world for life. And those people, I mean, even as adults, they're looking at stuff and they're blaming their circumstances on this, and the world hates me, and woe is me, and I'm so oppressed and everything else. And you're going, dude, you sucked at your job, so you got fired. It's nobody else's problem, or whatever the case may be, because they never learned, or they weren't willing to learn. Again, that's the hard part. You have to be willing. They weren't willing to learn that moment of, all right, I got to stop. I'm not perfect, and I need to figure this out. Yeah. And that's hard to do. In fact, there's a book, what's it called? Deliberate Discomfort by Jason Van Camp, I believe. I think that's, Jason Van Camp, Deliberate Discomfort. Every human should be required to read this. And it's literally just about going, okay, I need to make progress, or you're stagnant. There is no, life is a treadmill, right? It's constantly going. There is no standing still. You are either fighting forward or you are flying back. And it takes these moments in life where you deliberately go, this is going to suck, right? Going back to school, right? As a single mom trying to work and do everything else. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know it's going to be hard, but I know that's what it's going to take to get me over here, to grow. But as humans, 99% of us don't want to do that. We don't, because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think like you said, life's kind of like that treadmill, and it's always going, and there's no breaks to it. And it's like I heard a quote, I think it was at Kevin Hart, and he was like, he was saying, the sun's going to come up in the morning, like with or without you, kind of thing. What are you kind of going to do? That sun's going to be up in the morning, regardless of what. And it's like you said, we kind of don't like feeling discomfort. We kind of wired to kind of like, seek comfort, and, it's a lot easier to seek comfort than discomfort. And I think, but like you said, as you push through that discomfort, you grow and you become stronger,
Absolutely. And you do a lot of working out, right? You're really active. Yeah.
I do wait. Yeah. Well,
did I just put you on the spot?
No, it's fine. No, it's cool. No, it's fine. I had to pause. I work out, but I do it, for my own personal kind of fitness.
Right.
And I mean, through lockdown, I did press ups and weights, and then I just kept doing it over time. But I do that. I'm quite humble with it, and I do it because it makes me feel good, and I want to look after my body. And yeah, it is hard. You work out as well and things
Yeah.
like that. And but when you're doing it, it's difficult. But then like you said, you look back at like a month ago or however long, and you feel, you can see where you've grown.
Absolutely. But you had to take that deliberate discomfort, right, to begin with and go, whether it's you're bored or you want to make changes, you want to be healthy, you have to go through that uncomfortable stage of, okay, I'm going to do this. Like I work out 7 days a week, 2 to 4 times a day. Like that's what I do.
Wow.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do? But almost every morning, I do hard cardio. I hate cardio so much. I hate it. And so when I'm down, in a plank and I start doing Everest climbers and I'm like literally have sweat dripping off my face and I can't breathe and I just want to start cursing at the world because I hate this so much. It's that deliberate discomfort that brings those results, because it'd be so easy just to lay there and be like, I'm skipping this part. I don't like this
Yeah.
part, not doing it. But in order to grow, you have to do it, right? In order to build muscle, you have to tear it down, right? That's how you build muscle, is you have to create all these little micro tears in it, and then it rebuilds, and then it rebuilds stronger so it doesn't micro tear anymore. And again, that's life. We can jump into something, way ahead of where we should be, and it's going to be too much. But if we are constantly taking these little uncomfortable steps, going, all right, uncomfortable, but okay, example, I'm not great at being social. It's just not my thing. And so I really started working on it last year. And so I would go to places and my goal was to just smile and say hi to people. Like that was it. And it was so uncomfortable and I would be sweaty and awkward and I hated it, but I got so much better at it. So now when I'm walking on the street and I see somebody and I'm like, looks like they may be having a day. I made all those little micro tears in and through this discomfort, and I can just go, hey, have a great day.
Yeah.
People are like, thanks, right? Whoa.
Yeah.
But it takes all that discomfort to get there. And no one likes it.
No, I agree with you, and I think like I can relate to that from when I first started working in hospitality and restaurants. Like you're kind of thrown in all these different scenarios and so many. It's a very, very social line of work, and I'm very social, like as a person. But I'm talking about when I was 16 years old, 10 years ago. I just left school, college, and I remember like you've got chefs saying stuff, you've got customers, and it's like you kind of still trying to find out who you are as well, and your confidence and stuff. So you kind of, like I said, a bit like Bambi on ice,
Yep.
And I remember just feeling really overwhelmed and, like I said, like anxious, sweating, going up to tables, not knowing what to say, how to say stuff. But like you said, when you go in all these different situations, you just gain so much resilience and grow. Even if it is hard and difficult, I would rather would rather go into situations, fail or find difficult situations and come out, what I mean, go through that rather than not go into those situations at all.
Absolutely. And you totally win. You said resilience. Like that's one of my favorite words is resilience and perseverance. And you're right. Like pretty much everything we've talked about, it's all about that resilience. It's physical resilience, it's emotional, it's mental resilience, but it takes so much work to get there. And you're constantly having to work on it. Like you can feel like you are, you're at the top of your game, you know who you are and life is good or whatever else. I can guarantee you, life is about to knock you on your butt and show you know nothing. And you're going to start over. And that's that growth. And it sucks. But it's grow or die. So
yes, exactly. Because like with that, like that Joey Diaz guy that I like, he's on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about jiu-jitsu. And he was saying it's very therapeutic in some way, because he says you're always constantly learning and improving and self-reflecting, because like you could be good at a hold or a certain wrestling move. And then he said, one time you might do it and someone else is better than you. So he said, you might have been doing it for 8 years, but you're still thinking about, where you went wrong and where you need to improve and stuff like that.
Absolutely. It's that constant activity of constant improvement.
Mm,
and it's tiring. Have you ever noticed that the older you get, the more tired you get? I don't think it's because we're older. I think it's because we've worked so long, and I don't mean at your job, like every day. It's that constant, like climbing stairs all the time.
Yeah, I think things can definitely be a grind, isn't it? And it's interesting, kind of how kind of, what's the word? How kind of like resilient and how kind of like how kind of resilient and strong people are, how we grow, and we can adapt situations. It's pretty amazing, I find.
It is. It is. One of the things I studied in my bachelor's degree was a lot of nature versus nurture. And are you familiar with the concept nature versus nurture?
I've heard of it. I've definitely heard of it.
Okay. So a lot of it is the study of we're born with certain traits, right? Who we are. But our parents or whoever raises us instills a lot of that too, right? And there's this balance that no one can seem to find of how much of who we are is nature, unchangeable essentially, versus nurture. What did we learn? It's interesting to really put those two things together and to look at people in different situations. So Ben Carson, who's a politician around here, he grew up in horrific circumstances, absolutely horrific circumstances, and his mother was pretty hardcore on he and his brother, and I think it was his brother, yeah. And he ended up turning into this renowned neurosurgeon, a pediatric neurosurgeon at that. And he has done just phenomenal things in life. And now he's working as a leader in our Department of Housing and things like that. But if you look at so many people who are in his situation, they didn't turn out that way. Right? They ended up turning to gangs, drugs, they died young, live on welfare, whatever the case may be. And so you stop and you go, how much of it was just him versus how much of it was his mom forcing him to do these things? If we had an answer to that, man, we could solve so many of the world's problems.
Yeah.
We should work on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You and I, we're going to solve this.
Yeah. Day one.
Yeah. Big goals.
Yeah.
There's an uncomfortable goal right there. We're going to solve the world's problems.
It's it is interesting, like you said, when you see certain people and what they achieve, and that's why I'm interested in people, because like you see certain people who've done certain things, and then you kind of think to yourself, like, how did they get to that place? Why? What made them do that? And why isn't XYZ person doing that? And it's definitely interesting. Like I think of it. I mean, nobody can be like Elon Musk, for example. Do you know what I mean? Like that's one rare human being.
Yes.
But we can kind of, I think, take certain things that he's done, with like in terms of business and entrepreneurship and things like that. You can kind of model those side of things, because I think he had set in mind what he wanted to do, and he did it. So we can kind of take those kind of parts from it.
Absolutely. And those, I mean, he's a natural leader in so many ways. And it was funny, I was thinking about this, I think it was just today, I was watching some figure skaters, and just recently have people started doing quadruples, right? So they jump in the air, they spin 4 times, and then they land. Before, like, nobody did quads. Like, people were going, I don't think it's really possible. And all it took was one person going, want to bet? And they started landing quads. And now everybody can land quads. And all of a sudden, and it's the same thing with track stars, right? Everyone said, no one's breaking the 6-minute mile. It was broken. Everybody could break it. No one break the 5, the 4, whatever else.
Yeah.
But it takes a different type of mentality and resilience. Holy cow, the resilience on like Elon Musk and these guys is just incredible, because the first step to success is failing. You're gonna fail. You have to fail. If you do not fail, you will not succeed. And Elon Musk has failed plenty.
Mm.
But again, deliberate discomfort. He's got to go, wow, that failed. What did
Yeah.
I learn from that? And how do I go
Yeah.
from there?
Yeah.
Right? It's really hard. But as soon as one person sees an Elon Musk in the world and they go, oh my gosh, this guy's
Mm.
taking on everything. And he's
Mm.
and he's huge, right?
Mm.
They're gonna go, I can do that too. Right? That
Mm.
barrier is broken for them. Whereas before people were going, you can't do that. No one's done
Yeah.
it before. Why you can't do that? Now we are our biggest roadblocks by far.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think like it's like we kind of all have that kind of critical voice at some point. Do you know what I mean? In our head or in ourselves when we do something, or sometimes it's just like tuning into ourselves, isn't it? And kind of like believe, let's say like affirmations, beliefs, your thought process, how how you perceive yourself, isn't it? There's so much to it. Like sometimes I'll be working out and the little voice might go, "Oh, just do this for today." But then I was thinking, but then I was thinking, but if I just do that, then I'm going to feel crap later on. And then the crazy thing is what I was talking about the other day is like the domino effect.
Yeah.
Like, how is it like how you start your week, how you start your morning, things like this, then scatter out throughout the day. And until you start thinking about that, you kind of really kind of go to a place, don't you, where you start to think about things.
You do. And that's what you're talking about again, is so much resilience, right? You have to build that resilience in there so that you can, if you start your day or your week off wrong and you're going, you don't just give it all up. So in dieting, there's this thing called the what the hell effect. And it's if you have a moment and you're supposed to be eating really healthy or whatever, and you just don't, right? You have a moment of weakness because you're human and you go, what the hell? May as well just screw the rest of the day or the week, right? Whatever, I give up, right? That's a really nasty domino effect you just threw in there and you didn't have to. But if you've got the resilience, you can go, all right, I screwed up, going on. Right? And just realize you're going to screw up again. You are going to screw up. You will fail.
Yeah.
Welcome to being human. Right? Failure is part of it. Like you're not unique because you failed. But when we get in our heads, like you were talking about, man, we can go down the toilet fast. We just spiral ourselves down and go, well, I suck at life now, and no wonder that this is a problem, and I'm going to be stuck in the situation forever, and I may as well just give up. Okay, dude, you ate a Snickers bar, like chill out. It's not the end of the world. But man, we are so good at doing that to ourselves and just destroying ourselves, and that's so sad. But it's human. It's human nature. So if you have that resilience, hopefully you can dig yourself out of your little hole and climb back up.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I saw a picture and it's kind of tying into what we're talking about. And it was a picture of a pipe, and it was made, copper.
Okay.
It was copper, and it was this pipe was basically rusting, and it was basically saying, it doesn't basically, just rust straight away. And it can kind of compare that to the mind. And it was like, the people, we don't, basically saying like, it's kind of down to us in our mind. We can either be, positive or negative. If you're being negative, you're going to kind of rust, basically. You're going to beat yourself up, if you choose to.
Absolutely. Well, and I love biopsychology. I'm totally a bio nerd. Like I love that kind of stuff. And one of the cool things I learned in biopsychology was if you have negative thoughts or positive thoughts, right? Either way, they actually stimulate your brain differently. No matter, and whichever one you have more of will strengthen more in your brain, right? Just like working out, just like making those uncomfortable decisions in life, things like that. The more you do it, the stronger that gets. So if we have a tendency to be super hard on ourselves, oh my gosh, you're creating this piece in your brain that's going to continue to be hard on yourself and just get worse and worse and worse. And I've had people tell me, I'll do a stream of consciousness kind of thing. They're like, Leslie, what is going on in your head? And I will just stream of consciousness, like, right? This is what's going on in my head. And they go, oh my gosh, Leslie, would you ever say that like to your daughter? Would you ever tell anybody? Would you ever talk to anybody the way you talk to yourself? And I'm like, no, That would be
Mm.
terrible.
Yeah.
I would never say the things to anybody else that I say to myself. And they would look at me and they'd say, well, then why is it okay? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not okay. But it's what I have created in my head for so long, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just my natural thought process. And it has taken a lot of work and time, and we're still working on it to get
Mm.
those voices and those thought processes changed, because it is a physical transformation in your brain where the
Mm.
side that was super negative and all these pathways that were so strong, it's time to weaken these and strengthen these.
Mm.
But
Mm.
like working out, like discipline and skating, anything, it takes
Yeah.
time and
Mm.
repetition and time and repetition, and that takes resilience.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's a really, really good point. Um, it's definitely, real, when you think about it in that way. And instead of people being on autopilot, just to take, a few seconds and, like what you just mentioned, that it's almost like a hardwiring, isn't it? And we've got the ability to, be aware of that and change that if you want to. It's a choice, isn't it, at the end of the day? And I think people are going to have to, people should change for themselves. You can't force somebody to change. It's kind of got to come from within. Yeah.
It does,
Um,
but in order to come from within, you have to be willing to see it. And that's where
mm,
so many people fall short, because to actually sit back and go, how broken am I inside? Because everyone's broken inside. Nobody's perfect, and that's okay. But to be
mm,
able to look inside and go, wow, I have this really ugly inner thing going on right now, and I need to do something about it, as opposed to just going, I know I'm not perfect and I'll work on it. I'll work on it. Right? Look at my changes. I've done such a good job. Whereas unless those changes have happened internally and it's an intrinsic thing, you're doing it for you, right?
mm,
You want to be a better person, even if it's, I want to be a better person because I need to be the best person I can for my kiddo. I'm not doing it for her. She just happens to be a good sidekick, right?
mm, mm, mm,
But it's so hard for so many people to be sincere about that,
mm,
right? Being introspective, that's the word I want. Being introspective is hard,
mm.
because we all want to be strong. But if you're introspective, you're going to go, look, I'm weak. I've got weaknesses. That's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, I experienced that when when I did coaching. You kind of have to be coached. You have to be coached. You can't
Yeah.
just do life coaching. You have to go into like, your insecurities and kind of go into the dark stuff, to understand what it's like to be vulnerable and what it's like to be on the other side of it. So you understand how that, you know what I mean? You kind of
Yeah.
see both sides. And I think when you tap into things and you own it and you accept it, that's kind of where change can happen, because you start processing it and you start kind of almost like playing around with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I think a lot of that goes back to being mindful, going,
Mm,
right, I've got this darkness, I've got this dark side, I've got these issues, whatever you want to call them. And then going, okay, I acknowledge that that's part of me, but I acknowledge that's not who I am. It doesn't define who I am,
mm, mm,
right?
yeah.
Now, how do I change it? But
Mm,
you've got to first get to that point where you can go, dude, I got some ugly going on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's hard. So good on you. If you can do that, that is phenomenal. And you will be the best life coach because you can do that.
Mm,
You get it. You understand. You've been there.
yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think like I said, we're all kind of on our own journey, aren't we? We've all got our own stuff. And it, it's just like I said, it's kind of trying to be aware of it, isn't it? As hard as that can be sometimes. And I think like as well, kind of accepting that we do make mistakes and none of us are perfect, aren't we? We kind of, I think we live in a world that kind of seeks perfection and things like that. There's a whole other topic, but
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of like owning and being it's okay to fail, isn't it? Like you said, with the students that you have, and that's how you kind of grow.
It is. It absolutely is. And as long as we're all working together and growing together and realizing
Yeah.
that the people around us aren't perfect either, and we have grace for them and hope that they have grace for us as we learn and grow.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, wouldn't the world just be such a happier place? So
Yeah.
much happier. Just be patient with
Yeah.
people. People are people. You're a person too, right?
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have our moments of stupidity. We all have
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
moments where we hurt somebody we didn't mean to hurt, whatever
Mm.
else. But if we can have that grace with somebody else who's done that to us,
Mm.
my goodness, the
Yeah.
world would be so much more pleasant.
Mm.
But
No, that's it.
all we can do is teach it, right? And live it.
Yeah. 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 No, exactly. It's the way forward, isn't it? It's the way forward.
It is.
It's telling people, giving people advice and just kind of like mentoring them with, how you think people should be, and look, passing on your mistakes and our victories and things like that, and people can learn from it. I was thinking as well, like where can people find you on like social media? Like where can people?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's under Leslie Gilchrist. I don't know. Let me check.
Yeah. Well, that's I can check.
It is.
I can check.
You can check. All right. Yeah. So it should be under Leslie
Yeah, it
Gilchrist.
is.
Okay. Good. That's good. I am on Instagram. I don't.
It's Al ALALFAR
Alfrap
Alfrap 03.
03. Alfrap 03 on Instagram. I don't do a whole lot on Facebook. I'm technically on there, but
Yeah,
I'm
is what
kind
it
of
is.
busy, so I'm not on a whole lot of social media at all right now.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
But people can always hit me up. Just don't expect an answer right away. Be patient with me. I'm human.
Yeah. No, it's great. But no, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Leslie.
This has been awesome. Thank you. I
No,
appreciate it.
yeah, no, you're welcome. And it's great to touch base, and it's great to, have these chats and discussions. I think, we really touch base on some really deep topics, and, something that I think people can take a lot from. And, it's great, connecting with, yourself.
It's all good. And I love the fact that we have enough similar experiences and enough different experiences that we can just bring that all together. Because again, we're all human. So it's a beautiful thing is what it is.
Yeah. No, that's it, exactly. But
thank you so much. You are amazing, by the way. Did you know that? Truly.
No, thank you.
Truly.
Thank you.
Own it. You're talking about owning it. Own the fact that you are awesome.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Well, really means a lot.
Good.
And so are you as well.
Oh, thanks.
But have a great evening. It was great talking to you.
It was good talking to you too. And I'm sure we will be in touch, good sir. But until then, have a fabulous night.
I will do. And you too as well.
I will. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.